Look around a grocery store for a second, and everything can still feel normal. The shelves are full. The lights are bright. The carts are rolling. But the pressure never really disappeared. It just moved into the details. A smaller jar, a thinner package, a shelf tag that looks almost the same as last month until you realize the unit price is higher. That is where a lot of household money disappears in 2026. And that is why this video is not about panic buying. It is about checking the pantry staples that actually protect your budget before the next store trip turns into a surprise. Because most people are not doing anything wrong. They are walking into a system designed to make small changes feel harmless. A few cents here, a reduced ounce count there, a 2-for-1 sign that is not really a better deal. By the time you get to the checkout, the total tells a very different story than the shelf did, so let's slow it down and make this useful. We are going to walk through the pantry staples smart families are checking right now. Not because every item is suddenly a crisis, not because you need to stockpile anything, but because a calm pantry gives you options. And options are what protect your money when grocery prices start moving again. Start with the basics that quietly lose value first. Cooking oil, flour, sugar, salt, rice, pasta. These are the kinds of items people assume are stable, but they are also the kinds of items where package size, brand position, and unit price can change in ways that are easy to miss. A bottle of oil might look normal until you notice it is a little smaller than the one you bought before. A bag of rice may still sit in the same place on the shelf, but the price per pound has moved enough to matter over a month of meals. The smart move here is simple. Do not shop by sticker price alone. Shop by how much usable food you are actually getting. If your family really uses rice every week, then rice can absolutely be a value anchor. If you only cook it once in a while, then a giant bag may become dead weight in the pantry. Pantry value only matters if the food gets eaten before it loses quality or gets forgotten. That same idea applies to flour and sugar. These are quiet pantry helpers, but they can also be false bargains if they sit too long or if you end up buying sizes that do not match how you cook. A bigger bag is not automatically smarter. It is only smarter if it fits your real routine. If you bake once a month, you do not need a warehouse supply. You need a manageable backup that keeps you from making extra trips. Salt is the exception that proves the rule. It is one of the simplest staples in the store, but even there, packaging can be a trap. Some containers are built for convenience, not value. A small grinder or fancy finishing salt can cost much more than a basic box or canister. If your household uses salt for everyday cooking, the plain version usually does the job. The money you save there is not dramatic in one trip, but over time it keeps your pantry from becoming a collection of expensive little extras. Now move to breakfast, because breakfast is where many households lose money through urgency. Oats, cereal, peanut butter, jam, and shelf-stable milk are not glamorous items. They are practical ones. And practical items matter because they reduce the chance of grabbing something overpriced when the morning is already moving too fast. Oats are a strong example. They are usually dependable, filling, and easy to stretch into a full meal. But even oats deserve a check. Watch the serving count, not just the box front. A smaller canister with a cheerful label can look like a deal until you compare the cost per ounce. The same goes for cereal. A box may look full from the front and still give you less than you think. That is not a family budgeting failure. That is retail design doing what it does best. Peanut butter is another shelf item worth paying attention to. It can be a useful protein source, a lunch backup, or a fast breakfast fix. But the value can swing a lot depending on brand, size, and ingredient style. Some households prefer the classic version because it stores well and gets used quickly. Others buy the natural version and then discover they do not actually enjoy stirring it or dealing with separation every time. If a pantry item creates friction, it becomes wasted money even if the price looked fair. Jam and shelf-stable milk are similar. They can be useful, but only if your household really uses them before they age out or sit unopened for months. A pantry is not a museum of good intentions. It is supposed to work on busy mornings. So the question is not, is this cheap? The question is, will this help us eat at home instead of buying convenience food? That question matters even more when we get to canned and boxed protein. Beans, tuna, chicken, lentils, and soup are some of the most practical items in the whole pantry because they can stop a small grocery problem from becoming a large takeout expense. Fresh protein costs can push a household into last-minute decisions. Canned and shelf-stable options give you a fallback. But here again, the shelf can mislead you. A can that looks cheap may actually give you less drained food than expected. A package that says family size may not feed your family in any meaningful way. The real check is what happens after the can is opened. How many meals does it support? Does it combine easily with rice, pasta, bread, or vegetables? Can it become lunch tomorrow? Or is it one more item that needs extra effort and gets pushed to the back of the shelf? Beans are one of the strongest pantry staples because they are flexible, filling, and usually easy to pair with other food you already have. Tuna can be useful if your household actually eats it, but compare the real size and the number of servings. Canned chicken can be a smart backup when fresh meat prices spike, though the taste and texture are not for everyone. Lentils often deserve more attention than they get because they can stretch a meal without much drama. Soup can be helpful too, but it should be judged by its usefulness, not by the bright label on the front. This is where the system starts to make sense. The best pantry protein is not the one that sounds healthiest on a commercial. It is the one that helps you make a real meal with what you already have. If you can turn it into lunch, dinner, or a quick backup without ordering food or making a second store run, it is doing its job. One thing that helps here is understanding what is already in your kitchen before you buy another backup. Too many households build a pantry around vague memory instead of actual use. They think they are low on beans, then find 2 cans behind the cereal. They think they need more pasta, then discover 3 unopened boxes in the back of a cabinet. That is how money gets trapped in duplicates. A quick check at home can save a lot more than trying to remember every item while standing in the aisle. Now let's talk about the items that make cheap ingredients actually usable. Sauces, seasoning, broth, spices, bouillon, and condiments are easy to ignore because they seem small. But small pantry items often decide whether the whole meal works. A plain pot of rice is fine in theory. A pot of rice with broth, spices, or sauce becomes dinner. That difference is where a lot of waste gets rescued. Pasta sauce is a perfect example. It can turn basic pasta into a meal without requiring a lot of extra spending. But the shelf can play games here too. Some jars are getting smaller while the price stays stubborn. Sometimes the cheapest looking sauce is actually weak on flavor, so you end up adding more ingredients to fix it. And then the deal stops being a deal. Broth is another quiet helper. It can improve soup, rice, casseroles, and even leftover vegetables. Bouillon is often a more compact backup, but only if your household actually likes the flavor. Spices matter for the same reason. If your pantry has a few versatile seasonings that you use often, you are less likely to let inexpensive food go uneaten because it tastes plain or repetitive. Condiments can be value protectors too. A little mustard, ketchup, soy sauce, or hot sauce can help turn leftovers into something people actually want to eat. That may sound minor, but it is not. Food waste is expensive. A pantry that supports reuse is a pantry that saves money in a very real way. There is also a timing issue people do not always think about. The best pantry flavor items are the ones that fit your real schedule, not your ideal one. A slow-cooked meal with every spice cupboard in the world looks good on paper. A Tuesday night meal after work needs something simpler. That is why a few reliable sauces and seasonings can be more valuable than a crowded shelf full of one-time purchases. When the household is tired, the pantry has to do the work quickly. At this point, a lot of viewers start thinking, yes, but I do not want my kitchen to become overcrowded. That is exactly the right instinct. The answer is not more stuff. The answer is better structure, and that means the freezer has to be part of the conversation. Frozen bread, frozen vegetables, dumplings, frozen fruit, and simple proteins can give a household breathing room. But only if the freezer is being used as a planned backup, not as a place where random extra purchases disappear. A freezer that is too full to understand becomes just another clutter box. A freezer that is organized becomes a money tool. Frozen vegetables are especially useful because they reduce waste. You do not have to worry about them spoiling in the crisper drawer. Frozen fruit can support breakfasts and snacks without the pressure of racing against ripeness. Bread in the freezer can stop that familiar cycle where half a loaf goes stale before anyone finishes it. And simple proteins, whether they are chicken strips, meatballs, or another basic item your household actually uses, can help bridge the gap when fresh food prices are high or your schedule is packed. But the rule stays the same. Do not buy freezer food for a fantasy kitchen. Buy it for the meals you actually make. Check the real space you have. If your freezer is already crowded, there is no value in adding more. A planned freezer is a control system. A packed freezer is often just hidden waste. One more thing matters here, and it is easy to overlook. Frozen food only saves money when you can see it and reach it on time. If the oldest bag gets buried behind newer items, the freezer stops being a backup and starts becoming a forgotten storage unit. That is why rotation matters even with cold food. Put the older packages forward. Write dates if you need to. Keep a short list on the door if your household tends to forget what is inside. The goal is not perfection. The goal is making sure food leaves the freezer before it becomes mystery food. There is a practical reason this matters in a higher price environment. When fresh prices climb, people often switch to frozen in a hurry, then lose track of what they bought. That can create the same waste problem in a colder form. The point is not that frozen food is risky. The point is that every form of storage needs a system if you want it to actually save money. Now let's move into the category that can save people from convenient spending more than almost anything else. Snacks and comfort foods. Crackers, popcorn, cookies, instant cocoa, and granola bars may not sound important in a pantry video, but they are often the items that keep a household from making expensive impulse runs. Think about when those purchases happen. Late afternoon, a long drive home, a weekend when everybody is tired. The store or gas station suddenly becomes the easy answer. And that is where prices can feel absurdly high, because convenience charges you for urgency. If you keep a few comfort items at home, you reduce the odds of paying extra just because the household is hungry and nothing is ready. That does not mean filling drawers with junk. It means keeping a small, realistic buffer of things your family will actually finish. If nobody likes the crackers you bought because they taste like cardboard, they are not a value. If the granola bars are too sweet and sit untouched, that is money tied up in disappointment. The smart version of snack buying is not about moralizing food. It is about knowing what keeps your family from making expensive last-minute decisions. And if you want this to work in real life, the snack shelf has to be honest. One container of good crackers that gets eaten is better than 3 boxes of bargain snacks nobody wants. A pantry succeeds when it lowers friction, not when it looks impressive. Another useful check is how often a snack becomes part of a meal instead of just something extra. If crackers work with soup, if peanut butter works on toast, if popcorn actually replaces a takeout urge on movie night, then those items are buying you something more than calories. They are buying you time and reducing unplanned spending. Here is the mid-video reality check, because this is the point where the whole system becomes easier to use. Before you buy any pantry staple, check 4 things in this order. First, the unit price. Not the big label, the unit price. Second, the package size. Has it quietly shrunk? Third, whether the food fits real meals in your house. Fourth, whether you already have enough at home. If a product fails 2 of those checks, leave it. If it only works in theory, leave it. If you would have to force your family to eat it just to justify the purchase, leave it. A staple only deserves shelf space if it earns its place. That is the real shift here. You are not trying to build a perfect pantry, you are building a smaller, smarter one that gives you choices. And once you start checking like that, the disappointing items become much easier to spot. Oversized packages are the classic trap. They look efficient, but if the food spoils, goes stale, or gets ignored, the savings disappear. Fancy packaging is another one. A premium jar, a sleek label, a more polished front panel. None of that matters if the actual value is weaker than the plain version sitting next to it. Bulk buys can also backfire. Bulk only helps when you know the food will be used on time and stored properly. Otherwise, bulk turns into waste with a lower price tag attached to it. That is still waste. And waste is one of the most expensive things in a household budget because it hides inside good intentions. One way to avoid that is to make the pantry smaller and more intentional. Keep 1 or 2 backup formats for key meals. That might mean rice, pasta, beans, oats, broth, and 1 or 2 protein options your household really eats. Rotate stock so the older items move to the front. Use pantry food before it becomes forgotten food. And keep the pantry organized enough that you can see what you have without digging. A good pantry does not need to look full. It needs to look usable. If you are watching this with a fixed income, or if you are simply tired of grocery uncertainty, this is the part to remember. Preparedness is not about fear. It is about reducing the number of times the store gets to surprise you. Every can that saves a takeout meal. Every breakfast item that prevents an emergency run. Every seasoning that rescues leftovers. Every freezer backup that keeps dinner on track. Those are small protections. But small protections add up. There is also a mental benefit here that people underestimate. When the pantry is steady, the household feels less pressure to react emotionally to every price change. You are not forced into panic because you know what is already at home. That calmer mindset often leads to better buying decisions than any single coupon ever could. Now let's make this concrete for your next grocery trip. Before you go, look at what your household actually eats in a normal week. Not what you wish you cooked. Not what looked good on a social media reel. What you truly use. Then choose 3 or 4 pantry categories to check first. Maybe it is cooking basics, breakfast, protein, and 1 comfort item. That is enough. You do not need to inspect every aisle like you are preparing for the end of civilization. You only need to avoid being rushed into expensive decisions. When you get to the store, read the shelf tags slowly. Compare sizes. Compare servings. Compare what the item really does for your kitchen. If something is on sale but you would not normally buy it, treat it carefully. A discount on the wrong item is still a waste. And if a shelf looks similar to last time but the quantity is smaller, trust the math, not the branding. At home, when you unpack the groceries, put the new items behind the older ones. That one habit helps reduce waste more than most people realize. It is simple, low effort, and it turns the pantry into a system instead of a pile. If you are short on space, do not keep more than you can see and use. A crowded pantry can create the feeling of security while actually hiding money that will be lost later. That is why the smartest families in 2026 are not trying to buy everything. They are checking the staples that matter most, because those are the items that control how often they need to pay full price in a hurry. And that is the full pattern. Grocery pressure usually does not arrive as one giant event. It comes through small changes that stack up. A little less in the package, a little more on the shelf, a convenient buy that is not really convenient once you add it to the cart. The answer is not panic. The answer is awareness. If you understand how pantry value actually works, you can protect your money without turning your kitchen into storage overflow. You can buy fewer emergency items. You can waste less. You can make a better plan for the foods your household already depends on. So the next time you walk into the store, do not look for everything. Look for control. Look for usefulness. Look for the staples that buy you time, flexibility, and a little more calm at home. If this helped you see grocery shopping differently, stay with us. The Consumer Crisis Report is here to make the pressure easier to understand, one aisle at a time.